Hello and welcome back to the RemNote tutorial series. If you're new here, my name is Jerzen. I'm a third-year medical student, and in this installment we're going to be talking about making better flashcards. I've never been a fan of flashcards. They always seem tedious to get through, especially if you've got hundreds of flashcards in one single deck that you need to go through in one single session. Unlike my previous workflow where I would use one app for note-taking and another one for making flashcards, RemNote can automatically make a flashcard out of a note. This is great because it saves a ton of time, but the downside of this is that there's a slight learning curve because you need to type out the notes in a certain way. Let's begin by talking about the different types of flashcards that you can make. Now, if you've used RemNote before, you might be familiar with the concept descriptor framework. If you're not, check out this video that I'm linking right here where I go over the basics of RemNote, including this exact framework. But in a nutshell, concepts are basically main ideas and descriptors describe the concept. And the way you make a flashcard for each one of these is by simply just using two colons. So if we have a word right here and we want to convert this into a flashcard, to make this into the front of a flashcard, you would just use two colons like so, and then you can type out whatever you want, a definition, a list of items, whatever you'd like. Now to make a concept flashcard, you just use an uppercase letter to make the front of the flashcard, and you use a lowercase letter if you want to make a descriptor flashcard. These aren't the only types of flashcards. You also have list flashcards, which we can see here. So list flashcards can either be a concept or a descriptor, and I mainly use these to display larger answers, but you can also use it to display a list of information like a list of drugs. Now to make a list flashcard, you would use three colons instead of two like you did for the other one. So you would just go 1, 2, 3, and then you can just start typing out your flashcard. Under list flashcards, we have numbered lists, and the difference between a numbered list and a regular list is the fact that numbered lists come up in order. So over here, we're going to see step 1 first as one flashcard, step 2 as another flashcard, and step 3 as the third flashcard. With the list flashcard, they're all just going to be put under one card. Now, the way you make a numbered list is by putting two colons, and you put the number 1 and period, and then you can make your first flashcard right there. Now, the next type of flashcard is an image occlusion. This allows you to hide parts of pictures, and this can be particularly useful for subjects like anatomy, where you have labels on different structures which you need to memorize. So to do this, you just upload a picture by just dragging and dropping or copy and pasting, and you click the image and you hit this little button here that says generate image occlusion cards. From here, you can just drag a little box over the part that you want to hide. So let's hide the RemNote text here, and then that's it. You can preview your flashcards down here. So let's preview this one. We can hit show answer and we can see that it went from hidden to shown. The next kind of flashcard that I want to cover are closed deletions. The way you make a closed deletion flashcard is by using the curly bracket. So we can just hit it twice and we can just type out deletions and we can close it like that. Closed deletions basically allow you to make fill in the blank questions. So if we look at the flashcard preview right here, we can hit show answer and we can see that deletions has shown up as a fill in the blank answer. Now, I've never really been a fan of flashcards because they always seem tedious to get through, especially if you've got hundreds of flashcards to go through in one single session. My goal was to make flashcards easier and fun to do, but they also had to be a little tedious, so I would actively recall my notes. You can check out my active recall video right here. Traditionally, people break down their concepts into small little pieces of information and make those into flashcards, but this makes a huge amount of flashcards, which I just wanted to avoid. The way I deal with this is by using the question, what's the deal with? I got this idea from Ali Abdal. You can check out his channel linked in the description, but essentially you just use the question, what's the deal with? And then you try to recall every little piece of information that you have to remember. So over here, I have a comparison between the traditional flashcard taking method and the method where you ask yourself what's the deal with. I've chosen the topic tuberculosis, so this is how you would traditionally make a flashcard caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is a closed deletion. Main organ affected is the lungs. Transmission via the air from an infected person can cause caseous necrosis. This makes 4 flashcards, and over time this can add up. Instead, I would ask myself what's the deal with tuberculosis, and this kind of forces me to link all these questions together and dredge up the information in one piece. And I found that this helps me personally in remembering the information for a longer amount of time. My goal is to basically understand the concepts and then remember them instead of just memorizing them by heart. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't memorize at all. So for example, if you have arbitrary facts like the mean hydrostatic pressure of blood, which is 17 millimeters of mercury, I can't feasibly find a way to understand this per se. So I would just make that into a flashcard in the traditional way and just memorize it. Speaking of memorizing, one great way that I use to help me memorize a list of items is by using mnemonics. Mnemonics are a great way to remember a list of items. I do this by cooking up a mini story that helps me remember the answer. For example, I remember the fact that 5-nitroimidazole, which is a drug that's used against certain parasites, has the commercial names tinidazole and metronidazole. I came up with the mnemonic, Tina spent 5 nights in a dazzling metropolitan city. Now, I know this sounds silly and honestly quite funny, but this helps me remember the flashcard, and that's what's important in the end. One feature of RemNote that does help with mnemonics is the extra card detail tag, which you can just add by hitting hashtag, and extra card detail like so. And if we go to the flashcard preview, we can see that it comes up as an extra card detail, so it's not actually part of the flashcard, and that is great for just adding mnemonics. One thing that I always say about mnemonics is that the crazier the mnemonic, the better you remember the story. So try to come up with your own mnemonics, because that will help you a lot in memorizing it instead of just using someone else's mnemonic. Now that you have your awesome little flashcards ready, you need to make sure you actually utilize them. Not doing that will warrant the flashcards useless. You need to build an efficient system that will allow you to revise your information at the right intervals so that you won't forget them. RemNote is great for this because it has a spaced repetition algorithm built in, so that helps a lot in mitigating actually figuring out when to revise. In my previous workflow, I would have a Notion database which had formulas which would tell me when I have to revise. RemNote just automatically shows a flashcard when it's time and just makes life a little easier. Right, hope that helped you in figuring out how to make better flashcards. If you enjoyed this kind of content, consider subscribing and liking the video. Check out my other videos in the RemNote tutorial series, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.